In the heart of the American Rust Belt, where the steel mills had long since gone silent and the cornfields stretched out like a golden ocean into eternity, there lay a town that time seemed to have forgotten. It was called Willow Creek. It was a place where everyone knew everyone's business, where the Friday night high school football game was the only religion that mattered, and where dreams usually died the moment you graduated. Living in a small, weathered clapboard house on the edge of town was a young girl named Sarah. Her family didn't have much. Her father, John, worked double shifts at the auto repair shop, his hands permanently stained with grease, while her mother, Linda, waited tables at the local diner, serving coffee and pie to truckers passing through on the interstate. Despite the peeling paint on their walls and the stack of unpaid bills on the counter, their home was filled with a quiet dignity. They were good people, hard-working people. Sarah was different from the other kids in Willow Creek. While they talked about buying pickup trucks or settling down just a few blocks from their parents, Sarah's eyes were always fixed on the horizon. She was brilliant, sharp-witted, and possessed a hunger for knowledge that unsettled the simple folk around her. She devoured books from the public library, reading about federal laws, criminal justice, and the big cities where decisions were made. She dreamed of wearing a badge, of standing for something bigger than herself. She wanted to be an agent with the FBI. She wanted to command respect, not just demand it. But in Willow Creek, tradition was a heavy anchor. The prevailing thought was simple. Why fill a girl's head with fancy ideas when she's just going to end up running a household? When Sarah was just 17, a senior in high school, with a scholarship application half filled on her desk, her destiny was hijacked. Her parents, crushed under financial debt and worried about her future, arranged for her to marry Jason. Jason was a few years older, a former high school football star whose glory days were already behind him. He came from a well-known family in town, the Millers, who owned a large plot of farmland. To Sarah's parents, it looked like stability. To Sarah, it looked like a prison sentence. They got married the summer after she turned 18. Sarah had begged to go to college, to take that scholarship, but the pressure was too immense. "It's a good match, Sarah," her mother had said, eyes tired. "You'll be safe." So Sarah moved into the Miller family's large, drafty farmhouse. It was a house that smelled of old wood and strict rules. Jason worked at the local warehouse, driving a forklift. Before the wedding, in the quiet moments when they sat on the porch, Jason had seemed supportive. When Sarah had timidly asked, "Jason, can I still take online classes? I want to be someone," he had nodded, shrugging his shoulders. "Sure, babe, whatever makes you happy." Sarah held on to that sure like a lifeline. She thought marriage would be a partnership. She was wrong. The moment she crossed the threshold of the Miller house, the reality set in. Her mother-in-law, Martha, was a woman of iron will who believed a woman's place was in the kitchen, not in a classroom. Her father-in-law was a silent, brooding man who expected dinner on the table at 5 p.m. sharp. And Jason? The Jason she married wasn't the charming guy from the porch. The warehouse work was grueling, and Jason came home tired and irritable. The promised support for her education evaporated like mist in the morning sun. A few months into the marriage, Sarah gathered her courage. She found Jason watching TV, a beer in his hand. "Jason," she said softly, "I want to enroll in the community college nearby, just for the basics. Remember you said?" Jason didn't even look away from the screen. "College? Who has the money for that, Sarah? And who's going to clean this house? Mom's getting old. You're the wife now. Act like it." Those words hit her like a physical blow. "But you promised," she whispered. He turned then, his eyes cold and unfamiliar. "I said a lot of things. Grow up, Sarah. Nobody in this family needs a degree to survive. Drop it." But Sarah couldn't drop it. The fire in her belly was the only thing keeping her warm in that cold house. She tried to study in secret, hiding books under the laundry basket, reading late at night when the house snored. But the tension in the house grew. Jason's temper, fueled by cheap whiskey and the frustration of a dead-end job, became volatile. Arguments became the soundtrack of their lives. If the roast was dry, he shouted. If she spent too long at the grocery store, he accused her of lying. The emotional abuse was a slow poison. "You think you're better than us?" he would sneer. "You think you're too smart for this town? You're nothing, Sarah. Without me, you're just trash." One humid July evening, the dam broke. Sarah had been caught reading a criminal justice textbook by her mother-in-law, who threw it in the trash. When Jason came home, the house was a war zone. Sarah tried to defend herself, tried to explain that she just wanted to make their lives better. "I can be an officer, Jason. We could move out of here. We could have a real life." That night, for the first time, Jason didn't just shout, he struck her. The silence that followed the slap was louder than any scream. Sarah fell back against the kitchen counter, her hand cupping her cheek, staring at the man who had vowed to protect her. In his eyes, she saw no regret, only a twisted satisfaction of dominance. The man she thought she knew was gone. In his place stood a stranger consumed by his own failures and insecurities. Days turned into weeks. The abuse became a cycle. Sarah learned to be invisible. She learned to walk on eggshells. But while her body was trapped in Willow Creek, her mind was plotting a way out. She realized something profound in the darkness of her bedroom. If she stayed, she would die here. Maybe not physically, but her soul would wither away until there was nothing left but a shell. It was a Tuesday night in November. The wind was howling outside, stripping the last leaves from the trees. Jason had come home drunk, raged about his foreman, and passed out on the recliner. The in-laws were asleep upstairs. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed. She looked at her reflection in the vanity mirror. A bruise was fading on her arm. She saw the girl she used to be, the girl with the bright eyes, fading too. "No," she whispered to the empty room. "Not like this." She moved with the precision of the agent she wanted to become. She packed a single duffel bag, a change of clothes, a bottle of water, a few dollars she had skimmed from the grocery money over 6 months, and her high school diploma. She took a piece of notepad paper and a pen. Her hands trembled, not with fear, but with adrenaline. She wrote, "Jason, I was 18 when I married you. I wanted a partner, but you wanted a servant. You broke your promises and you tried to break me, but I'm not broken. I'm leaving. Don't look for me. I'm gonna be who I was meant to be." She left the note on the pillow next to his snoring form. She looked at him one last time, feeling a strange mix of pity and revulsion, and then she walked out. The gravel of the driveway crunched softly under her boots. The night air was biting cold, but it tasted like freedom. She walked 5 miles to the interstate bus station, hiding in the shadows whenever a car passed, terrified it might be him. She bought a one-way ticket on a Greyhound bus. Destination, New York City. If you're going to dream, you dream big. As the bus pulled away, leaving the flickering lights of Willow Creek behind, Sarah pressed her forehead against the cold glass. She had $70 in her pocket and a universe of determination in her heart. The sun began to rise over the highway, a burning streak of orange, and for the first time in years, Sarah smiled. It was a terrifying smile, but it was hers. New York City was a beast. It was loud, indifferent, and expensive. Sarah stepped off the bus at Port Authority and felt the weight of the world. She found a tiny, pest-infested room in a shared apartment in the Bronx. It was the size of a closet, but it was her castle. The struggle began immediately. She needed money, and she needed it fast. She took a job at a diner in Queens working the graveyard shift, scrubbing floors and serving burgers to strangers. She took another job cleaning offices in Manhattan during the early mornings. Her hands, once smooth, became rough and calloused. Her back ached constantly. She ate cheap instant noodles and stale bread. But every spare minute she had, she was at the public library. She couldn't afford the fancy prep courses for the federal exams, so she used the old books. She studied the Constitution, federal law,
logic and reasoning. She ran in the park at dawn with holes in her sneakers to prepare for the physical fitness test.
There were nights when she cried herself to sleep, missing her parents, missing the comfort of a warm bed. The loneliness was a physical ache, but then she would remember Jason's sneer, "You're nothing, Sarah." And she would get up, splash cold water on her face, and open the book again. 2 years passed in this grueling rhythm. Sarah applied to the FBI Academy. The process was rigorous: background checks, psychological evaluations, physical tests. When the rejection letter came the first time, it felt like the floor had dropped out from under her. She hadn't made the cut. She sat on the floor of her tiny room, holding the letter, the tears flowing freely. Had she made a mistake? Was she just a small-town girl fooling herself? A knock came at her door. It was her neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Higgins, who had heard her sobbing. Mrs. Higgins made her a cup of tea and sat with her. "Child," Mrs. Higgins said, her voice raspy but kind, "you came all the way from nowhere with nothing but a bag of clothes. You survived this city for 2 years. A piece of paper says no today, it doesn't mean no forever. The only way you lose is if you pack that bag and go back to that man." That sparked the fire again. Sarah taped the rejection letter to her wall. She looked at it every morning. "Not today," she told it, "but someday." She doubled her efforts. She worked harder. She slept less. She studied the patterns of the tests. She pushed her body to the limit in the gym. The next application cycle came. Sarah walked into the testing center with a steely calm. She wasn't the scared girl from the cornfields anymore. She was a survivor of New York City. She took the tests, she ran the miles, she aced the interviews. Then came the waiting, the agonizing silence of bureaucracy. One afternoon, while she was scrubbing a table at the diner, her phone buzzed. An email. She froze. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. She opened it. "Congratulations, you have been selected for the basic field training course at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia." Sarah dropped the rag. The noise of the diner, the clattering plates, the shouting cooks, faded into a dull hum. She fell to her knees right there on the checkered floor, weeping. Not tears of sadness, but tears of pure, unadulterated victory. Quantico was hell, but it was a heaven she had chosen. The training was brutal, but every push-up, every tactical drill, every late-night law exam was a step away from Willow Creek and a step toward her destiny. Graduation day was crisp and bright. When Sarah stood in her dress uniform receiving her badge and credentials, she looked in the mirror. Special Agent Sarah Vance. The face staring back was strong. The fear was gone. In its place was an unshakable resolve. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "I did it." Years went by. Sarah rose through the ranks. She was good, exceptional, actually. Her background gave her an empathy that many agents lacked, and her struggle gave her a tenacity that criminals couldn't shake. She had the badge, the government car, the respect of her peers, and a life she had built, brick by brick. But a question always lingered in the back of her mind, a shadow she couldn't quite outrun. What happened to Jason? She had heard through distant relatives that shortly after she left, Jason's life had imploded. The farm was sold, his parents passed away, he had vanished. But Sarah was busy saving the world. She pushed the past down. Then came the assignment in New Orleans. It was Mardi Gras. The city was a kaleidoscope of colors, music, and chaos. Millions of tourists flooded the French Quarter. The Bureau had credible intel about a security threat, and Sarah was the lead agent on the ground, coordinating with local PD. The humidity was thick. The streets smelled of spilled beer, sweet beignets, and the river. Sarah walked through the crowds, her eyes scanning for threats, her earpiece buzzing with chatter. She was commanding, sharp, completely in her element. She turned a corner onto a side street away from the main parade route to check a perimeter point. The noise of the jazz bands was muffled here. Along the brick walls of the old buildings, the homeless had set up a row of cardboard camps, seeking shelter from the festivities. Sarah walked past them, her gaze professional but indifferent, until a voice stopped her. "Spare $1, ma'am? Just something to eat." It wasn't the words, it was the tone, a rasp, broken and hollow, but with a cadence that clawed at a memory buried deep in her psyche. Sarah stopped. She turned slowly. Sitting against a dumpster was a man who looked more like a skeleton than a human. His clothes were rags, stiff with grime. His beard was matted, gray and wild. His skin was sun-baked and leathery. But his eyes, those blue eyes, now clouded with cataracts and despair, were the same. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. The jazz music faded into silence. Sarah took a step closer, her heart pounding in a way it hadn't since the night she fled the farmhouse. She looked at the scar above her left eyebrow, a souvenir from a high school football game. "Jason?" she whispered. The man flinched. He squinted up at her through the haze of alcohol withdrawal and hunger. He looked at her polished boots, her tactical pants, the badge clipped to her belt, and finally, her face. Recognition hit him like a physical slap. His jaw dropped. His hands began to shake uncontrollably. "Sarah? Sarah, is that you?" The other agents with her stepped forward, sensing a disturbance. "Ma'am, is this transient bothering you?" one asked, hand moving to his holster. Sarah held up a hand. "Stand down. Give us a minute." She looked at Jason. The man who had once owned her world, who had towered over her with his fists clenched, was now destroyed by the very life he had tried to force her into. "Look at you," she said, her voice shaking, not with fear, but with a profound sadness. Jason looked down at his filthy hands. Tears cut tracks through the dirt on his face. "I lost it all, Sarah," he sobbed. "After you left, I fell apart. The drink took the job. The bank took the house. I came down here looking for work, but I couldn't escape myself." He looked up at her, shame burning in his eyes. "You did it. You actually did it. You're an agent. You're important." "I am," Sarah said simply. "I became exactly who I said I would be." Jason buried his face in his hands. "I was a monster to you. I know that. I think about it every day. I'm paying for it now. God is making me pay for every tear I caused you." Sarah looked at him. She remembered the slap. She remembered the insults. But looking at this broken wreck of a man, she didn't feel triumph. She didn't feel the need for revenge. She realized that her success was the best revenge, and his state was his own punishment. She knelt down, ignoring the filth on the pavement. She wasn't his wife anymore. She was an officer of the law, and more importantly, a human being who had healed. "Jason," she said firmly. He looked up. "I'm not going to give you money for a drink, and I'm not going to save you. You have to save yourself. But..." She pulled a card from her pocket. It was for a veteran and homeless rehabilitation center run by the city, a place she had contacts with. She wrote a name on the back of it. "Go here, tonight. Ask for Father Mike. Tell him Agent Vance sent you. They will get you a shower, a meal, and a bed. They will help you get clean, but only if you want it." Jason took the card with trembling fingers, treating it like a winning lottery ticket. You would help me? After everything I did?" Sarah stood up, dusting off her knees. She looked like a giant against the backdrop of the city lights. "I'm not helping you because of who you are, Jason," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I'm helping you because of who I am. I broke the cycle. I don't carry hate anymore. It's too heavy." She turned to walk away. "Sarah," Jason called out, his voice cracking. She paused, but didn't look back. "I'm sorry," he wept. "I'm so sorry." Sarah closed her eyes for a brief second, letting the last weight of Willow Creek fall off her shoulders. She tapped her earpiece. "Vance here, sector clear, moving to the next checkpoint." She walked back into the crowd, her head held high, the lights of the carnival reflecting off her badge. She had walked through the fire and come out not just a survivor, but a warrior. And as she disappeared into the sea of people, she knew that the girl from the cornfields was finally, truly free.